Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to explain machine learning model development by using a classical Mendel's experiment results. Okay, what is machine learning? We know the definition. Machine learning is a process where the machine understands the underlying relationships or the patterns present in the data and prepares a model, and then when a new data is submitted, this model takes a decision on the new model on new data. So now we are going to understand how a model is developed in machine learning by comparing this to the genetics where the Mendel performed a very classical experiment. Okay, Mendel he performed monohybrid cross, so he chose two contrasting traits for a character. For example, he chose tall and dwarf plants, and he performed monohybrid cross, and he obtained all tall plants in the F1 generation. And when he performed self-fertilization for the F1 generation, he obtained plants such as both tall and dwarf in a ratio of 3:1. Okay, so actually Mendel, when he observed a phenomenon, this phenomenon in nature, okay, when he observed a phenomenon where he found that in some generations where there is a hybridization between a tall plant and a dwarf plant, he observed completely tall plants. So when he observed this phenomenon, so he performed experiment, and he got a similar got data, or he found a similar pattern in his experiments also. And from this he proposed a model, or he proposed a law that is called law. For F1 generation he proposed law of dominance, and for F2 generation he proposed law of segregation. So he proposed these two laws by performing the monohybrid cross. Similarly, in machine learning, where the machine it reads the data, that means it observes the pattern present in the data and prepares a model for the data. So the way Mendel he proposed law of dominance and law of segregation. Okay, so when a new data is submitted, so this model takes a decision on the new data whether the data has a similar kind of pattern in it or not. So whether it has a similar pattern in the data is present or not, that can be that decision or that output is given by the machine. Okay, this is how we can compare the Mendel's classical experiment results with the model development in the machine learning. Okay, so we call parameters while developing the model. So the parameters are nothing but no the 3:1 ratio, what we said, no, that their coefficient values, or we can say they are the parameters of the this model. So there is other way, there is another approach that is called no testing the data on a already developed model is one aspect, or developing a model without training data, directly developing a model from a very well known law, or from very well known theory, and testing the data or new experimental data, whether the new experimental data has a similar patterns in them or not. Okay, for example, we can directly since we know law of dominance, we can prepare a model for this particular law directly without giving a training data to the machine to find out the patterns. So since we know the pattern already from the experiments, classical experiments, so we can directly develop a model, and we can test whether the new results or the experimental results are following a similar have a similar trend or not. For example, when we give experimental data where suppose 6,000 plants are there, some 3,800 are tall and 2,200 are dwarf plants. So this model predicts whether the particular data is in the proportion of 3:1 ratio or not. So this method this is all this can be also used for validating the developed model also. Sometimes when we develop a model, maybe the model may not wrongly in calculate its parameters. So to test whether whether the model is whether the model is accurate or not. So we may use this approach where we can see whether the experimental data, by giving the experimental data we can validate the model also. So this is how we can compare the classical genetics experiment with the machine learning model development. Okay, so the way we human reasoning works is similar, that machine learning also works on the same aspects. So humans, they observe the phenomenon and then they propose a law, and from the law they propose a theory. So we must understand what is the difference between this law and the phenomenon and also theory. So phenomenon is a observation when someone identifies a particular when they identifies a particular incident in the nature, so they call it a phenomenon. When this phenomenon happens repeatedly, from that they identify the pattern. For example, movement of a sunflower towards the sunlight is one phenomenon. When somebody observes it first time, so this we call it a when we this call it observation. When multiple times a person observes it, so from this we make a law that these sunflower plants, they move, they change their or they rotate towards the sunlight, so that is called a law. So from this law, so from this they can make out a law that is called phototropism. So that movement of organism towards the sunlight. So then when this law becomes a theory, so when somebody can explain how this happens or why this happens, so then that becomes a theory. For example, later scientists, they tried they tried to explain the reason for why the plants they move towards the sunlight. They explained that due to the cell growth more on one side, or due to the hormonal changes on one side, relative changes in the hormones on one side to the other side. So these kind of theories they explained for this one. So similarly for even this Mendel's law also. So when he observed this pattern, when he observed that all tall plants in the F1 generation, so he observed this first. Then when he repeatedly observed the same thing, so he proposed law of dominance. Then he explained then the later theories they explained how the factors, or how one gene can express or inhibit the expression of other genes. So then the theories has come. So initially he explained, he proposed law only, but he could not give the why that only that tall plants are produced in the F1 generation. But later some scientists they explained the reason for only tall plants in the F1 generation. So that means they gave theory for these laws. So this is how from phenomenon to observation to phenomenon, that is observation or phenomenon to the law, then law to the, then how this becomes into the theory. So this is what how the science where the observation in the nature they becomes to theories through the laws. Thank you so much.